My name is Andrea Sistrunk. My last name is uncommon to most, but I take pride in it. Years ago, I found that my last name was very common in one county in Florida. Someone I was related to made a historical impact to the existence of this town. Dr. James Franklin Sistrunk was his name. Who was he? Why is he so important to this county? What kind of history did he make? And who is he to me? I decided to travel down to South Florida to get all of my questions answered about this relative of mine.
This is where our history was tore apart. My grandfather had to go up as a young man. He had to move up to New Jersey, try to work up north because it was a lot freer up north than it was down south. So the South and Florida was segregated for a long period of time. So our family broke apart when he had to leave, and then others had to, the mother and his mother and father had to sacrifice them so that at least they could make it, because they didn't want them to be stuck in this segregated South.
Nearly 3 decades after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, James Franklin Sistrunk was born in Midway, Florida, just west of Tallahassee in 1891. This was the time the South was reconstructing, and many African American families struggled just to make ends meet and struggled for equality. As a child, young Doc Sistrunk got his early education from Thessalden Academy, a school for African American children in Ocala, Florida. Like many of the African American men during his time, he served his country in World War I, along with my great-grandfather.
My grandfather and him both joined the military, and they both fought in World War I. He happened to be a medic, and that's where his interest in the medical field, took place, because once he became a medic, he got out of the military and made it through World War I, and went into medical school because his interest lied on what he learned in the medical field being in the military.
After serving in the war, Doc Sistrunk completed his education in 1919, graduating with honors from Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee. He then came back to Florida to practice medicine for 2 years in a town named Denellen. Doc Sistrunk arrived in Broward County in 1922. Upon his arrival, he found a community booming with hundreds of black residents who had no medical facility of their own. They were dependent on white doctors for medical care, and even had to travel to West Palm Beach or Miami for medical attention.
Somewhat, if you look at Dr. Sistrunk, the problems were the hospitals were segregated, and we didn't have a lot of established black hospitals, so the healthcare was real poor because of the situation we had in this country and our government and the way we treated, African Americans back then. So we had a lot of issues, a lot of problems, and if we didn't have doctors like Dr. Sistrunk, it would have been a lot of women that would have had serious complications through childbirth. And without him, we would have had some problems.
Until 1938, Doc Sistrunk was restricted in the medical services he could provide, since black doctors were not allowed to perform surgery in white hospitals. He concentrated on delivering babies, and making house calls to the ill throughout the county.
Dr. Sistrunk was the type of guy that took care of most of the black people in this area that didn't have money. And if you were sick or something like that, he would take care of you to pay him later. He probably brought most of the black people in the world back in Fort Lauderdale. Most of the black people in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
He probably birthed most of them, the older ones that was born in the days, you know, like, they had midwives and stuff like that, because I can remember the midwives, my youngest sister was, I can remember a lady coming to our house and helping my mama have her. So I know Dr. Sistrunk probably brought a lot of people in himself, you know what I mean? A lot of people probably called him, you know, a lot of the richer people, like the Mizers and some of the other big families and stuff. He probably was right there to bring some of their people out of here, you know?
In 1938, Doc Sistrunk was joined in the practice with Dr. Von D. Mizell. Now Broward County's second black doctor, he was young, handsome, flamboyant, and an entrepreneur with modern ideas. Black patients were not permitted inside the old Memorial Hospital in Broward County. Dr. Mizell was frustrated with what was happening in the county, so in that same year, Doc Sistrunk and Dr. Mizell established Provident Hospital. Provident Hospital started out having only 5 beds, but in 1944 it expanded to 50 beds with a full medical staff. Doc Sistrunk served as Chief of Staff for several years after its establishment. The Distinguished Service Committee of Broward County in 1963 honored him for his outstanding service to his community, and on June 8, 1965, the Board of County Commissioners named a bridge the J.F. Sistrunk Bridge in his honor. On March 20th, 1966, good old Doc Sistrunk died at the age of 75. For many years after his death, the archives of the Fort Lauderdale Historical Society carried no mention of his name. According to Mrs. W. G. Hardy of the Historical Society in 1971, we don't have any records on coloreds, but we've been trying to get some things. The memory of him is very much alive throughout the black community, though. In 1971, the residents requested the City Commission to add the name of West Sistrunk Boulevard to Northwest 6th Street, and it was approved. Here is his wife, Mrs. Daisy Sistrunk, posing by the marker, honoring her husband. From doing research and from talking to many people in the neighborhood, Doc Sistrunk was known as the easygoing country doctor with premature white hair. That is how his patients gave him the nickname Old Doc. He delivered over 5,000 babies and could always recognize any child he brought into the world, no matter how old they were. Mr. James Bradley has been a resident in Broward County his whole life and remembers the day he met him.
His brother was born September 6, 1933. My oldest brother, me, and my younger brother, we was in the yard playing. And there's an airplane that go from New York City to Miami every morning. He said, boy, y'all seen that airplane up there? Said, it just brought your little baby brother. And I looked up at that airplane. I said, how could that airplane bring a little baby brother? I said, go in the house and sing. And he had that cigar running around in his mouth then. So we went inside, there was my little baby brother. But I thought about how did he come from way up there in that airplane. That was in 1933.
1933.
Well, at that time he was the only doctor here. You know, he took care of everything.
Traveling to Fort Lauderdale, I have noticed that his name is still very much recognized with a yearly Sistrunk Festival and parade in honor of him.
Yes, the Sistrunk Festival has been in Broward County for about 20 years, And in the festival, there's a parade that starts on about 9th Avenue and comes all the way to 27th Avenue. And all along the street, vendors would set up with a variety of wares, and all types of businesses and community organizations would join in the parade. Usually probably the best feature of the parade is that the Dillard High School is like the last part of the parade, and this is an area where almost everybody went to Dillard. It was like the oldest black high school here. So by that time of the parade, then everybody just joins in the parade and comes and have a festival at Delville Park.
In 1989, the city broke ground for a park dedicated in his name. This mural is a part of the Sistrunk Park, and the art recognizes many of the great Africans and African Americans' journey throughout time. I still don't know how I'm related to him besides having the same last name, but it's a start. I have learned that Fort Lauderdale was very fortunate to have this man because without him, the African American population in this county would be nearly non-existent. Dr. James Franklin Sistrunk. Generous, loving, a hero. Good old Doc.